Hey there, sports fans. How we doing? I'm very well, thank you. You're always so polite asking that at the start of all these videos. Welcome to 10 yards back in the AI-assisted studio, whilst my other one is fixed up, and you'll never notice the difference. For my review of round 3 of the Betfred Superleague, and boy did we have some results in round 3. But before we get into that, if you're into these videos, if you stumble upon me from time to time, if you're in my shorts and you like what you see, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and you know what? If I'm not particularly to your tastes, what better way to teach me a lesson and to make me read all those bloody subscription notifications, eh? Go on, get down there, teach me a lesson, give us a thumb, give us a bell, yeah, a bell or a lock or whatever the icon is. Give us one of them anyway. Right, round 3 just ended, and boy, there were some games, there were some results, there were some injuries. Sadly, let's have a look at what we had, and you can see the spread there. If you didn't already know. You might be thinking I've typed some of these results wrong, but oh no. It was a pretty one-sided round, this one. But before we get into the stats and the figures and my opinions on this, let's stick to the facts of the 1 minute round review. I'm going to give you the whole round in a minute. Let's go. Wigan versus Leigh. Wigan just far too fast for Leigh. No Epape, no game for Leigh, in my opinion. The ruck speeds were just too great. Not enough cohesion for Leigh. Wigan took it. Castleford, Huddersfield. Castleford's looking really good around those centre wing pairings. Dejan Arce's getting the ball to where he needs to. Great stuff. Huddersfield just can't react to anything. They've got ball players like Lola here trying to put stuff on, and they just can't do anything with it. Hull FC York, very competitive game. Backwards and forwards. It was in York's hands. It was in Hull FC's hands. Ultimately, that drop goal once again securing it for York. Vegas, baby. Leeds versus Hull KR. Jake Connor was perfect. Absolutely pulled the strings on everything. Saints versus Catalans. Saints ultimately didn't really need to give it more than a 6 out of 10 on this one. They were basically walking it in by the end. Catalans was quite disappointing, a little bit disjointed, lack a bit of cohesion. Warrington versus Wakefield. I'd be gutted if I was Wakefield. Warrington got a try they never asked for, ultimately winning it by 6 points. Bradford versus Toulouse. Bradford won. I mean that was a decent game as well. Just gone over my minute. It was a decent game, wasn't it? Ultimately, I think Toulouse were just they were trying to play Bradford a little bit. This game felt like there was history to it, which of course there would have been because these teams are used to playing each other. Yeah, it was a decent game. I think Bradford really just showed ultimately that they're here to play because they really controlled the game in the end with a bit of class. All right, let's have a look at the stats. The stats for the weekend. So this was a bit of a weird round for me. This, obviously, it's been basically dominated by a couple of big ticket items, hasn't it? Vegas, obviously, on everyone's minds on Saturday, kicking off at midnight. So the whole day was sort of building up to that event. The Battle of the Borough on Thursday didn't really deliver, and then you had sort of the rest of the games dotted around. So for me personally, I thought it was a little bit of a lackluster weekend in all, because I definitely couldn't stay up to watch that game. I got 2 young kids, but yeah, a bit of a weird one. But if we look at the points, 275 points scored, right? The total points difference. So that's if you add all the points differences up, winners minus losers, across the weekend, 191 points difference. That is higher than any points difference throughout the whole of last year. Last year, the highest points difference I think for the weekend was 171. Back in round 22 when we had a couple of similar sort of washouts to this. But it was a very, very one-sided weekend. Leigh got nilled on Thursday to 52 points. Hull KR scoring 1 try, Catalan scoring 1 try, Huddersfield scoring 2 tries, but who gives a shit? So yeah, 49 tries, 37 conversions, 77 penalties given away, which is interesting. 2 yellow cards. all in all, a bit of an odd one. I think that largely everything was just dominated by that big Leeds match. I think I was quoted on Thursday as saying, "God, this Battle of the Borough cannot disappoint," and I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. It just wasn't entertaining, was it? But that's your stats, scores on the doors for round 3. Moving on then to my game of the week. What do you think? It'd be disingenuous of me to say that my game of the week was anything other than this. Hull KR versus Leeds. So I'm going to cover this and then I'm going to shut up about it because it was a really good game. You know, normally when you look at this that I've put up, really you want to see areas where there's red and there's blue, you know, where you want to see areas where each team excelled, and that spells a competitive game. You know, if everything's down the middle, that's great. This wasn't that, but it was still very entertaining. I mean, look, if you just look at the stats for this game, you know, 52 points difference, 58-6. Leeds scored almost 800 more meters than them. They had 60 odd more carries, which equates to 11 more full sets than them. 19 offloads to 4 just shows how creative they were being. 51 tackle busts. That to me, the 51 tackle busts or 51 missed tackles just shows to me kind of where the game was lost. Really, it's an indication that Hull KR's defence just wasn't really there, wasn't really firing. And I think you can, if you needed me to, you know, prove it. Cooper Jenkins scored 1 try last year. This year, he's already scored 2 in the space of 6 minutes. And the first one was a nice one, you know, a bit of argy-bargy, bit of a crash over. The second try that Cooper Jenkins scored in that game, he was just in open field. You know, he's a big lad coming up against Jack Broadbent was at fullback, and he had some distance to cover, but he just backed himself. At that point, he was like, "Well, it's 52-6. So who gives a shit if I miss this? No one really cares." He backed himself. He ran. You couldn't believe he was outrunning everyone. You couldn't believe there was that much space. Like, I don't know if it was the camera angles or the camera definition, which I thought was a little bit too high for my TV, if I'm honest. But there was just miles and miles of space, and it felt like Leeds were always just finding that space. You know, last week, in the build-up to this, I said that it's going to be an aerial adventure. You know, you're going to have Jake Connor versus Mikey Lewis. If you ever, you know, like sometimes they do those like boxing games where it's just a bag on a stick and you punch it and you get your result, or like you know, they do it with kicks as well, or like a golf simulator type thing. This for Jake Connor, this stadium that he was playing in on Saturday was almost like a kick simulator for Jake Connor. You know, it's covered. There's zero wind. I bet the sound is just nicely muted because it's probably traveling up into the dome and back down. Some of those kicks that he was kicking, they had like 3-4 seconds of hang time on them. Imagine what Mika Sivo and Ryan Hall and just the Ash Hanley, you know, Newman, all those quick, fast players, Croft, what they can do with 4 seconds over 100 meters. They really, really can close down a defense. And, you know, that aerial attack from Connor, coupled with bloody Micah Sivo, who, you know, is it really fair to have that guy in your team? You know, that's really where it was. And I think after a point, I don't know what the distribution of these stats is, like first half versus second half versus the quarters. I just think that there was a point and it wasn't that far into the game. I think they were 24-0 up at like half hour, where the Robins probably thought, right, okay, we're done. And they didn't necessarily give up, because there were still some nice attacking efforts from them. And, a couple of times Lewis and Litton gelled, linked up, but, they were just cut down by Miller and Sevo. Really, that won it for Leeds. That dominating sky battle, the dominating speed of Sevo, and the forwards just always there for a quick ruck. Really, really just smashed the whole defence to pieces. And there was just space. There was just always space. There was always somewhere for a Leeds player to run. Now, the interesting thing about this is that, 58-6, there was another game this weekend which had a very, very similar outlook. Wigan versus Leigh was a kind of a similar situation. 54 points difference, 1,000 more meters than Leigh, so even better. Even smashed them even more. 100 more carries. What's that? 15 sets more than Leigh. But the Thursday night game was boring. My mum didn't even watch it to the end. Whereas the Saturday night game was captivating. You were watching that Saturday night one thinking, I just can't believe they're still doing this. I can't believe this is still going on. Whereas the Thursday night one was boring. You're like, come on, man. Come on, Leigh. Don't be mean, Wigan. So I don't know why. And I don't know why that was the case. And I don't know how to change it, in future. If you got a boring game, how do you invigorate it? I don't know. But game of the week, come on, you can't not pick Vegas, baby. All right, team of the week then. Let's have a look at team of the week. Now, again, obviously, between me and you, we know what team of the week was. Yeah, we know it was. But that'll be a boring video, wouldn't it, if I just discussed one game the whole time. So, my team of the week this week is St Helens. Believe it or not. Yeah, look, the Catalans game on Saturday, it was it was probably a hybrid of those two that I've discussed. So it wasn't as boring as the Wigan game. It wasn't as exciting as the Leeds game, but what it was a hybrid, because Catalans were trying to put stuff on, so it was a little bit more competitive than both of those games were. Yet Saints were still managing to get it done. I said they didn't have to go over a 6 out of 10, but maybe it was a 7 out of 10 that they had to go to. The reason I've picked Saints this week is I could have easily picked York as well, but the reason I've picked Saints here is because I think with what's going on in the game, with the rules, with the fast rucks, with the fatigue factor that's setting in, because a lot of these video ref decisions are getting taken off the field, and you're not really getting the chance to get fatigued. Saints played that really well. It wasn't a walkover game, this, but Saints were able to use all these new factors to their advantage. Case in point, something that we don't really, well, I'm going to say we don't really see that often. Last year, the try from dummy half was becoming a little bit of a rarity. Darryl Clark got one of those this week. He also linked up really well with his second rows. And I always say that a good Saints side has good second rows in it. That's the key to Saints' success. It has been historically. I think that this fast ruck speed, people seem to have connected the hook a bit, the dummy half bit. Yep, it's a fast ruck speed. We're gonna get on the front foot. We're gonna get either a scoot or something like that. But when the game speeds up, you need big fellas in the middle to punish the opposition. Props are good for that, but you probably haven't got as much mileage out of a prop as you have on a second row. So Shane Wright, Matt Whitley, and Curtis Sirenen. All right, I think Whitley was actually playing in the centres. I can't remember, but either way, the way that Clark was using the fast ruck, connecting with those forwards, those agile, fast, creative forwards to get the ball where it needed to be. I thought that was really good, and then couple that with the last play options presented by Hastings. I thought it was a really good performance, albeit a little bit slow. I'm looking forward to seeing what Saints do in the coming weeks. So we've got Bradford this week. That might be a bit of an arm wrestle, might be forced into that, but it's good. And this is when I was thinking through my reasons to pick Saints here. One of them, I had one of them in my mind, and it was like, no, you can't use that. Saints were getting a bit grubby, weren't they, around the play of the ball with conceding penalties and 6 agains for fun. They were getting a bit of a reputation. They have really turned that around. So maybe in the off season, new coach has said, listen, we used to hate it when you did that, so stop it. And they've stopped it, and they've turned that real change into an advantage. Good on you, Saints. My team of the week, obviously. All right, player of the week. My player of the week this week, with a wink again, because I've already sort of mentioned a few players there that were absolutely in contention, let's say, for player of the week. But my player of the week was, I thought York played an absolute blinder at the weekend. Like I said, it was really competitive. All right, probably an understrength Hull FC, but equally York trying out a couple of new combinations in their side a little bit. And I think the key to York's success in this game and probably in the future is Paul McShane. When I saw that Paul McShane was going to be leading York's Super League campaign, York's maiden Super League campaign, I thought, okay, this is going to go one or two ways, right? And it still can go one of two ways. Either Paul McShane is going to absolutely be a general in the middle of the field, marshal all those troops around and pull something beautiful off, or he's going to get injured and spend quite a long time on the touchline. I think that McShane's role in this team is the reason they won at the weekend and will win again. I'll explain. So in at 6 and 7 this weekend, York had Danny Richardson and Liam Harris. Is that his name? Richardson and Harris. I'm not mates with them. Let's take first names out of it. Now they are two. You could accuse them of being two quite similar players. Rangy, kicky, sort of. A bit sort of the. If you were to look at the classic definition of a 6 and a 7, they're kind of both 7s, aren't they? But they're both playing at the same time. They're both trying to deploy their skills in a mixed field, and that doesn't always work unless you've got someone like Paul McShane in the middle. What Paul McShane was doing in the middle was every single time he took the ball, he made 5 yards away from the ruck. Before he passed it, 5, 6, 4, whatever. On average, every play of the ball, he was taking it away from the ruck. Now, everyone over the off-season has probably prepared themselves for attacking behind the ruck because of what I just mentioned about the fast play of the ball speeds now. So McShane was not only taking it away from the area of focus, he was then able to get it out. He was taking it up to the line. He was playing a hybrid 9-6 in that, yes, he was always at dummy half, he was always prepared, he was always getting ready to pass it out, but the kinds of passes he was doing were right at the line. It was very, very half-backy. He also put in a few absolutely beautiful kicks right at the line, right piercing the whole line and scrambling it, essentially. There's nice little grubber kicks that just make it downfield when no one's ready for them. And that just really scrambled Hull's defence. And I think that really, really freed up those two really, really talented scrum halves, essentially, to do what they were going to do with their rangy, sniper type kicks. I think Richardson got a 40-20 in there, if I'm not mistaken. Everything they did was enabled through Paul McShane, and I think he deserves the plaudits for it. So well done there, fella. You've got my player of the week. And that brings us to a goodie, doesn't it? Try of the week. I said I wasn't going to mention it again, but there were a couple of decent tries, weren't there? Wigan pulled a few off, but I just don't think you can get try of the week in a game that's 54-0. Lewis Martin, try scoring expert, pulled one off right at the end of the whole game that was very good. And Saints scored a couple of screamers as well. My try of the week, though, you can't not give try of the week, in my opinion, to Micah Sevo and Ryan Hall connecting 34 minutes-ish into that game. So they were already 24-0 up, I think, at the time. They're at a dropout. There's just been a 40-20 attempt, I think, that was almost in, and Sevo knocked it out into the dropout, into the in-goal area. Dropout, right? I'm not sure what Hull thought was going on, whether they thought they were going short or whatever, but what they didn't think was going on was that as soon as the ball was kicked, Micah Sevo was going to run at 500 miles an hour straight into that centre position in Hull KR's sort of formation. Cleanly pick up the ball completely, and he's running at 600 miles an hour at this point. Cleanly picks up the ball, makes it 80, 90 meters downfield before he says, "You know what? I'm actually gonna take this tackle, and I'm gonna take the tackle because, like I said, I'm running 600 miles an hour. I could very easily be knocked into touch." So he cleverly takes the tackle, gets on the floor, takes his time getting up. He's aware that he's the only one on the field that can run at Mach 2. So he waits for his team to catch up to him. The whole KR defence aren't in anywhere near a formation to be making any tackles. I think there's 4 passes, and at this point, again, unlike the Wigan game, at this point you're going, oh, come on, they've got to pull this off. It would be such a shame if this try wasn't scored. And then the field opens up and you go, oh, and you know what? It would be such a shame if it wasn't scored by Ryan Hall. Ryan Bloody Hall, who was there at the construction of Stonehenge. Give him the ball and let him score a screamer. And that's exactly what they do. So they go from drop out behind the sticks to tackled on their opponent's 10-yard line to a complete traverse of the pitch to Ryan Hall, who scores the try. And what does Ryan Hall do? As soon as the try is scored, he almost looks a bit annoyed with it. He almost looks he doesn't celebrate with the other lads. What does he do? He goes straight up to Sevo and congratulates him on his screaming run. So that sums up my 6 for the week, my 6 points, my 6 again. What? For the week. Looking at the table, I mean, this chart here has only got league positions, but let me tell you, Wigan, I think, are 90 points. 90 points in the bank. Wigan have got. Toulouse have dropped a little bit down after that Bradford debacle. Saints are on the up. Obviously, it's still quite dynamic. It's just week 3. There's only Wigan now have won all their games, but all the newbies are all 2 from 3. So that's fantastic. They're on a 60% win ratio. I think we'd all written them off, hadn't we? We were expecting maybe this Sunday would have been the first win for one of those teams. So good on them. Right, guys, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of the new format. Obviously, like, subscribe, leave me a comment. Let's make friends. Let's make friends in the comments, everyone. Right, I'll be back probably tomorrow, maybe Thursday, with my predictions for round 4. But this has been round 3. See you later, guys.